The combat drone. How do I even begin? Damage? Yep, that's a lot of damage. How about the range? Yo, does this thing have infinite range during direct control? What the hell? Yeah, but surely survivability is an issue, right? Holy shit, I'm invincible! Okay, I get it. But every good defense needs some support. So surely— What the fuck? So it's pretty clear now that this tower is a jack of all trades and master of absolutely everything too, apparently. But all this power is locked behind one of the most mechanically complex towers ever added. And also 72,000 gold in level 100, but let's not worry about that. So in this video, I'll be showing you everything you need to know, starting with an overview of its stats and upgrades, and then moving into some strategies you can use to unleash the true power of the combat drone. The base combat drone has some pretty mediocre stats, with some pretty horrible cost efficiency and terrible range, so it may seem that this tower isn't all that good from a quick glance. But this all changes with this ability, Direct Control. And when I say it changes everything, I mean it changes everything. Off the bat, you get a flat double damage buff to every single attack, infinite range, and the ability to ignore all damage resistances on a headshot, which does triple damage. The headshot multiplier increases to an impressive 4x against bosses and a whopping 7x against strong bosses. All of a sudden, this tower is looking a lot stronger. Now, let's get into some upgrades, shall we? Starting off with the top path, we have the AR platform, which pretty much doubles your DPS. Not much else to say here. The next upgrade, Heavy Ammo, greatly increases your damage, and well over triples your DPS, which is absolutely insane. Next up, the Gatling Gun upgrade. This upgrade not only increases your damage by nearly twofold, but also increases the fire rate, which leads to tripling your DPS again. This upgrade also adds a shield ability that grants 10 seconds of invincibility with a 30-second cooldown. Then we got the Rocket Pod upgrade, which adds, you guessed it, a Rocket Pod. Perfect for dealing splash damage, which this tower was lacking so far. The shield duration is increased to 12 seconds, and the DPS is doubled again. Finally, we have the X-22 combat drone. Just look at the stats of this thing. Both your main gun and rocket pods are greatly upgraded, and you gain a third weapon option, bombs, which adds even more splash damage capability to the combat drone. The shield duration is also increased to 14 seconds, and the tower gains the pursuit ability. The top path combat drone is perfect for dealing extremely high damage against pretty much everything, while also having decent survivability with its shield. And also we can't forget about Freak him, let's fucking go! For the bottom path, we have upgraded sensors, which increases the range and grants stealth detection. Pretty basic stuff, although I should mention that you don't need this upgrade to damage stealth enemies if you're directly controlling the drone. Next up is additional ammo. This upgrade is more utility focused, where you get a little bit of everything, with the most notable upgrade being the increased amount of ammo you have during direct control. Okay, now with that out of the way, we can get to the more juicy upgrades, like the Reaper drone. This upgrade essentially turns your drone into a mini AC-130, where your gun is replaced by missiles, and you lose the ability to actually pilot the drone, because it just flies in circles now. Additionally, the drone becomes invisible, so you won't have to worry about being shot down, which is a pretty neat feature. The next upgrade, Enemy Highlight, grants the combat drone a powerful support ability, Spotter. This ability increases the amount of damage enemies take, while also being the first ability to directly affect the movement speed of an enemy. The missiles also become much stronger, which justifies the huge price jump. Lastly, we have the Pave Missile upgrade. This upgrade turns the combat drone into a powerful support asset. The Spotter ability becomes even stronger, while the new Pave Missiles can stun enemies and bosses for 3 seconds. Now that you have a good understanding of the combat drone and its various upgrades, let's talk some strategy. Now you may be asking, strategy? What do you mean? Just shoot the damn zombie! And while yes, that is completely valid, there are ways to optimize your playstyle so that you can squeeze out every last drop of value this tower provides. Starting off with the top path. This path specializes in dealing damage, more specifically to bosses, while still having decent splash damage capabilities. With 3 weapon options being the machine gun, rocket pod, and bombs respectively, it is important to understand how to optimally use these weapons to maximize your damage output. The machine gun specializes in dealing high single target DPS, especially to bosses with its bonus headshot multiplier, although it becomes less accurate from further ranges. The rocket pods strike a balance between DPS and splash damage, however they cannot headshot, which makes them less effective against bosses, but excel against tight groups of enemies. Finally, the bombs, which are your best option against large hordes. This weapon has the largest splash radius in your arsenal, while also having decent DPS, but its long reload time and short effective range make it less reliable than the other weapons available. Now that you understand the functions of each weapon, it's time to learn about weapon combos. Because weapons can reload while you use another, you can maximize your damage output by switching to a different weapon during the reload. This technique is the foundation of every single combo, so understanding it is important. First up is the rocket pod combo, which you'll be using in most situations. To do this combo, fire your rocket pods and switch the machine gun when they are reloading. This combo works best against normal enemies and can also be used from afar to protect your drones from possible threats. Next is the anti-boss combo, which is essentially the opposite of the rocket pod combo, where you'll fire your machine gun and switch to the rocket pods when your machine guns are reloading. This combo only works if you can consistently hit headshots, so it is recommended to turn off 150% speed if you're having trouble aiming. If the boss is in an unfavorable position that makes headshots difficult, resort back to the rocket pod combo until you can move your drone into a better position. Since most bosses can easily destroy the combat drone, it is important to position your drone outside of the boss's attack range when doing this combo. Finally, we have the bomb combo. This combo deals the most damage and works best against large hordes of zombies. The execution is quite simple. It boils down to dropping the bombs and using the rocket pod combo when your bombs are reloading. However, due to the limited range of the bombs, it is not recommended to use this combo against bosses and other threats, such as the Purgatory. With these combos under your belt, you can start to utilize some techs to further boost the performance of the combat drone. Here are some that I find quite helpful. Shield bombing. This tech is pretty simple. The shield ability gives you enough time to do a single bombing run without having to worry about any potential threats. But you must fall back as soon as you finish dropping the bombs, or else you run the risk of the shield expiring too early. Altitude aligning. This tech involves positioning your drone at the same altitude as an enemy's head, which makes headshots and air enemies easier to hit. Altitude reset. This tech allows you to quickly reset the altitude of the combat drone. To do this, simply exit and re-enter direct control. These are the only techs I am aware of for the top path, so if you discover any new ones, please leave them in the comment section. Mastering these combos and techs will have you prepared to maximize your damage output in every situation, and serves as a toolbox to build your own unique playstyle that best fits you. And holy shit, that sounds like AI. Okay, we're going to the bottom path now. The bottom path drone is a lot simpler than the top path. It primarily plays as a support tower, with its extremely powerful spotter ability that can slow down and weaken enemies, and pave missiles, which can stun enemies and bosses alike. With only 2 weapon options and no headshot bonus, there isn't much incentive to use direct control for damage purposes. However, this doesn't mean that direct control is completely useless. The extremely powerful spotter ability is only available when the drone is under direct control. And there is one tech you can do that requires direct control, which I will be showing now. And they already nerfed the combat drone, so this doesn't work anymore.
Thank you, John Roblox.
What does still work is spacing out your pave missiles by waiting 3 seconds before firing the second one. This increases the stun uptime from around 23% to 37.5%, which is a very significant upgrade. Against bosses, the timings are a little bit different. This is because bosses are immune to stuns for 3 seconds after they become unstunned, so you have to wait 6 seconds before firing another pave missile. And that just about wraps up my combat drone guide. This is probably the best tower in TDX right now, so expect it to be nerfed in the future. Also, because this tower is relatively new, if you discover any other techs or useful information, please leave them in the comments. Okay, bye!